place where it is appropriate for you to do so, go ahead and close your eyes and take a few slow, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more peace and light entering your body, and with every exhale, let gravity take away from you all tension and anything that you do not want. Breathing in light and peace, and exhaling, just dropping away everything that you do not want. As you continue to relax and breathe, we visualize ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove up with a sacred golden light. We recognize that this is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it burns away everything that is not like itself, easily and joyously. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us here, our Creator reveals themselves as a God and Goddess, a Father and Mother. We also invite the presence of our teachers, our angels, and our guides. We dedicate this time that we are spending together to them, and we ask that we be led as we walk upon the way so that we become happier, more peaceful, more successful, more loving, healthier, and more prosperous people. Thank you very much, and if it's appropriate, you can join me in saying out loud, "Blessed be." In the basic angel magic course, I think it's in lesson 6 if I remember correctly, there's a process for solving problems using nothing but the qualities of the divine. And I want to talk about how to do that today. It doesn't matter what the problem is. It doesn't matter how big or small. It doesn't matter who the problem involves. This is a divine operation, and the only thing about solving problems with divine operations is that we have to allow those problems to be solved in the way that the divine wills it, rather than deciding for ourselves how things are supposed to look. If you want to solve a problem all on your own and make sure that it works out in a specific way, this is not the operation for you. Solving a problem all on our own and making things happen a certain way assumes that we know what will make us happy, that we know what a true solution looks like, and oftentimes that we even know what the problem really is. And my experience teaches me that most of us don't understand what our problems truly are, and we don't understand what the solutions are supposed to look like. And we definitely don't know and understand what will make us happy, because we don't understand that a lot of the things that we are attracted to are the things that contribute to our unhappiness. So when we work with divine magic, high magic, like what we're going to talk about today, we have to come to the understanding that our ego mind has us snowed and that everything in this world is not as it seems, and that our problems aren't exactly what we think they are, and our solutions aren't exactly what we think they should be. And when we understand that, then it's easier for us when we do an operation like what we're going to talk about today, for us to have success with those operations, because we give right of way to infinite spirit that does know and that is very eager to help us. We also have to understand that we have free will, and we can use our minds any way we want. And that's part of the problem, is that we've been misusing our minds. And so to continue to misuse our minds in order to fix a problem doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? We instead search and reach outside of the thought system in which we find ourselves. And that has to come from a power that exists outside of our pseudo-reality, but exists within us. That's what infinite spirit is. We know, many of us who have studied this work, that we often work with 8 different qualities of spirit. We'll just talk about them briefly. We have the quality of life, we have the quality of soul, we have the quality of spirit, we have the quality of intelligence, we have the quality of love, we have the quality of law, and we have the quality of presence. And in the basic angel magic course, we understand that each of those qualities exists within each of the archangels that we work with. And for doing what we're doing today, it doesn't really matter about the archangels. Although if you are involved in the angel magic course, you can obviously work with those angels. But we don't really need to when we're working at it at this level. We can just work with the qualities of spirit themselves. So what we want to do is figure out, first of all, what our problem is. Do our very best to define it as we understand it, understanding full well that we may not completely understand the problem, but we're going to do our best. We do our part. So defining the problem the best we can. So let's just say somebody was creating an untrue rumor about you, spreading gossip about you. That happens. It's not a very nice thing. And sometimes it can feel like there's nothing we can do. We want to go above the vibrations where this gossip or these rumors are occurring, and instead we want to work with a divine quality of spirit. Now, if you don't know which divine quality of spirit to work with, that's okay. But let's say we did in this particular time. Let's say, well, if it's rumors, if it's gossip, then what's the divine quality that will address that? Well, probably divine truth, probably calling on divine truth. And so simply all we do is we state the problem, we define the problem as best as we can, and then we pivot. We learn how to pivot, and we instead of thinking about the problem, instead of obsessing about the problem, we take that problem and we pivot and we start thinking instead of divine truth. And we immerse our minds in divine truth in every and any way possible. And we consider what divine truth is. And we consider how divine truth works. And we just allow ourselves to be interested in nothing but the quality of divine truth. We might write things out, affirmations out about divine truth. We might draw pictures. We might chant chants. We might burn candles and incense. We might do all kinds of things that we can do to keep our minds focused on divine truth. You don't need to do it for a long period of time, but you just take whatever the problem is, you define it as well as you can, and then you pivot and you start thinking about the divine quality instead, even if it's only 2 or 3, 5 minutes, where you can really, for just a moment, drive out of your mind the thought of the problem and replace it instead with that divine quality, with that sense of that divine quality. You can call on divine truth. You can invoke divine truth constantly throughout your day when you get pulled off your center, and you can say divine truth reveals itself. Divine truth is the one and only reality in this situation. You can be relentless about that. Invoke, invoke, invoke. Let's take an example of another problem. Maybe you are getting evicted because you couldn't pay your rent. I don't really know what the divine quality is. Let's say you just couldn't figure that out. Well, then you just go through each one. You go through each one. You list them out. You write it out and you say, okay, I'm going to bring my problem up into my mind. I'm going to define it as best as I can. And I'm going to just for a moment, just assert what I believe my problem is. My problem is that I can't pay my rent and I'm going to get evicted. That I've gotten a notice of eviction and I'm going to be homeless. And then you say, okay, now I'm going to pivot and I'm going to drive that thought of that out of my mind try to do that for at least 5 minutes, right? By thinking, what is divine life? What is infinite life? What does that mean to me? What does that feel like? What is infinite life? What is infinite soul? What is infinite spirit? Infinite intelligence, divine truth, perfect love, divine law, divine presence. You go through each one of them and you just sit with them the best as you can, and you consider it, you contemplate it, and you think of nothing else but that quality. driving just for a moment the thought of your problem from your mind. These little treatments that you're giving yourself, these little spells, and you have a lot of leeway how you do them. There's no set ritual. Like I said, you can burn candles, you can burn incense, you can chant affirmations, you can write things out, you can create talismans for these things. However you want to do that is fine, as long as what you're doing is focusing on the quality itself. I find just a meditative state is the best way for me, but if ritual is necessary for you, then go ahead and use it. But so that you have very clearly pivoted from the problem and into the divine quality or series of divine qualities. And then you want to do that maybe a couple times a day. And you should start to see movement right away. You should start to see movement, at least in your mind, where you're feeling things are resolving. The idea is to allow yourself to get into that place where the divine quality or series of divine qualities have taken the place of your fear of whatever this problem is. And then you'll notice what tends to happen is the problem starts to clear up. There's always a resolution that's available, but we have to get ourselves out of the way. We have to get our own ego mind out of the way and allow that quality of the divine to take its place, if only for a few minutes at a time. And the thing is when we learn about a technique like this, it seems too good to be true, and so we discount it. And so instead of doing that, I would recommend to you, if you have a true problem, that you give it a try. That you give it a try where you're able to pivot from the problem in your mind and into the divine quality in your mind. And the way that you pivot into the divine quality is by really considering what each quality means. We go through these qualities quite a bit, especially in soul magic, but I'd like to go through them once again, just so that you can understand how to use your mind in this way, to consider these qualities as a pivot from the problem in order for that problem to be solved. So instead of thinking about your problem, if you're thinking about life, then you just start thinking about, well, what is life? What is beating my heart right now? What is making me breathe? Why is it that no matter what seems to die, that life goes on? There's nothing that anybody can do to kill life. They can try, but it's going to live on because that's infinite. And it's divine, and life will always live on, no matter what. Then you can think in terms of soul. What is divine soul? How is that a divine quality? Well, because I'm an expression of God or goddess. I'm an expression of the divine. I'm like an extension of light. I'm an extension of the divine. I'm a divine ray. That's who I am. Can you imagine what that feels like when you just realize that? Whoa, I'm huge. I'm so much bigger than I thought I was. That's not something that makes you feel arrogant. That's something that makes you feel humble. Like, whoa, I didn't know that, right? The arrogance is me trying to play small. So that's divine soul. You can really go with that. You can think about that for a long time. Divine spirit, infinite spirit, infinite spirit. What is that quality of infinite spirit? Spirit is the thing that's not destructible. Death can't touch spirit because there is no form there. It's just constant. It's constant power. It's pure power. And there's nothing that can thwart it, nothing that can oppose it, nothing that can threaten it. Invulnerability. Just the concept of spiritual invulnerability, especially when you realize what you are. Whoa, I'm invulnerable because the infinite created me that way? Just thinking about that. Thinking in terms of what is infinite intelligence. Infinite. Now, infinite means infinite, eternal, no limits, no end, no beginning, constant. Blows your mind. That's infinite intelligence. Now, what is infinite intelligence? How does that manifest itself in this universe? Everything that science discovers. Science is always uncovering amazing truths about how designed our universe is, how everything works perfectly together. Everything is perfect the way it works together. There's so much that science can't understand yet and will never uncover, because infinite intelligence is infinite and it's intelligent. And that intelligence is part of your mind. It's not something that's separate from you. You're an extension of infinite intelligence. The genius of the universe is also the genius of you. So within you is that same genius. Now, our ego mind isn't such a genius. It likes to think it is, but the ego mind likes to separate itself from infinite intelligence. And then that ego mind wants you to believe that there is nothing outside of that pseudo-genius of itself. But once you realize that you're a lot bigger than an ego, and that you're eternal, and you're infinite, and you are brilliant, and you have the same genius within you that is the genius of the infinite. Whoa, mind blown. Just considering that. Infinite truth, divine truth, perfect truth. Why is truth supposed to liberate us? Because truth is true. Now, divine truth it has no end. If I allow myself to be at one with divine truth, I have nothing to fear because the truth sets me free. There's nothing to fear. So I'm going to just align with divine truth, and I'm going to align my words with divine truth. I'm always going to tell the truth, no matter how scary it seems. I'm always going to tell the truth so that I can be in alignment with divine truth. And if there's some untruths in my past, I'm going to go and look at those, and I'm going to clean that up. And I'm going to commit myself to truth from now on, no matter what, because that way I align myself with the truth. And the truth is so much more powerful than anything this world can throw at me. Perfect love, that's a divine quality. That's the fabric out of which I am created. The infinite created me out of an act of love. The infinite loves me so much that it gave me life. That is perfect, pure love. Am I continuing that chain of love? Is everything that I meet an opportunity for me to love? Or am I just stopping the line right there and just saying, no, I'm enough. I don't need any more love after this. The infinite can extend itself as love as me, but then we're done. Or am I going to say, no, I'm going to continue this. I'm going to give love so that I can experience love, because everything that we want to experience must be given, or it's not real for us. So love, infinite love, that's where all compassion comes from. All forgiveness, everything that is good comes out of that infinite love. And love is the bottom line law of the universe. Love is the law. It Crowley says love under will. So the will that's necessary for you to contact infinite love is that you are going to continue extending love just as you are an extension of love. Sit with that instead of thinking about your problem just for 5 minutes. Divine law. Divine law. The laws of the divine. These are laws that can't be broken. They can't. You can try, but they can't be broken. The only thing that we can do to break the law of God is to go to sleep to it, is to pretend like it's not there, is to create a pseudo-reality that doesn't exist. We say, okay, 2 + 2 = 6. Everybody, let's all believe that together. And you recruit enough people to believe it, and then it seems like it's true. It's not. It has there's building your house on sand. But if we say, no, the infinite's laws, the divine law is supreme, and that I'm under nobody else's laws but God's, and God's laws can't be broken. Therefore, God's laws are there to do what? They're there to serve me. They're there to help me. They're there to protect me. So I want God's laws. I want the law of the divine in every aspect of my body, mind, and affairs. I want nothing but divine law active, because it's there to help me. Divine presence. There is no spot where God is not. Now, we're not talking about the patriarchal deity God. We're not talking about some male deity. We're talking about the divine. We're talking about the infinite. There is no spot where God is not. That means divine presence is always available to us, but we have to tune our minds to it, because we have that freedom of choice to use our minds in any way that we want to. But if we're trying to solve a problem using the idea of divine presence, then we want the presence of God instead of the presence of the problem. We want to think about the presence of God, because in the presence of God, the problem must disappear. The problem must dissolve, because it's not God's will that you have that problem. It's not the will of the divine that that problem exists. That's something the ego made up. The religions of the ego made up this idea that God's going to test you, God's going to throw a bunch of problems at you to see what you can take, and that's the way that you grow. That's not true. That's the way this world works, but that's not the way God works. And you're under no laws but God's. Therefore, whatever this problem is, it can be solved. And it will be solved in whatever way is the best way for you. But you can do that by experiencing the divine presence rather than the presence of the problem. And again, this is only for 5 minutes at a time. You're not expected to cleanse your mind completely of your experience of this problem. You're only expected to do that in the confines of this operation. But if you can do that 1, 2, 3 times a day over however long it takes before you get that click, before you get that sense of certainty that everything's working out okay. You define the problem to the best of your ability, and then you pivot, and instead of thinking about the problem, you think about a divine quality or a series of divine qualities instead for a period of time. That seems like, well, how can that do anything? Try it. Try it and see how that can do anything. And notice how profound it is when you're doing it. It's not simplistic. It's very, very powerful. It's very, very profound. And it's extremely effective. Emmett Fox talked about something similar. He called it the golden key. Your problem can be solved if you are willing to define your problem to the best of your ability and then pivot off of the problem and start thinking about a quality of the divine instead. And when you do that, you have basically put the problems into the hands of that part of your mind that can solve it, rather than trying to solve it yourself using the same part of your mind that was responsible, at least in part, for the creation of the problem. So that's a very, very profound and powerful tool, and I hope that you use it, and I hope that this has been interesting for you, and I'm very grateful for you spending some time with me today, and I look forward to the next time that we spend together. And until that time, blessed be.